Good morning and welcome to our Westernacher webinar focused today on supply chain visibility. So this is very much a logistics topic around global track and trace and visibility within your supply chain. If we just go to the next slide, Yogesh. I see people are joining us as we go, so I'll do a brief introduction and then I'll pass over to the core content. But just a very brief overview on Westernacher for anybody that may not have heard about us before. So we're a specialist consultancy focused on end-to-end supply chain solutions. So today, as I mentioned, we're talking about global track and trace and supply chain visibility, but we also deal with the full suite of end-to-end solutions. So warehousing, transportation, yard logistics, manufacturing, and all the solutions within the SAP supply chain suite. We're a German consultancy based out of Heidelberg with a global presence. I'm personally based in our London office within Waterloo. So today you have myself, I'm the account director for Westernacher in UK and Ireland. We are joined by Yogesh Bidkar as well, who is the UK practice director for transportation. And also Zenon, who is a solution architect with specialist expertise within track and trace that we'll be covering today. So we've got a brief agenda here. So we'll kick off with an overview around visibility that will cover some of the challenges that people are facing and the kind of business side and business case around where this type of solution fits in. We'll follow that with a demonstration of the system, so it'll be a recorded demonstration, but we'll be looking at the actual system itself. So a little break away from slide decks there. We'll also talk about implementation scenarios as well. Maybe we'll touch on some typical challenges and also the sort of the approach that we would recommend as experts within this topic. And then we'll finish with a Q&A. So if anybody has any questions whilst we go through this webinar, if you can add them to the chat, that would be great. And then at the end, I'll ask any questions or as many questions as I can to the experts that we have here and cover those off in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes. I think that's my part to pass over. So I'll pass over to you, Yogesh, and you can kick us off.
Thanks, Tom. And hello, a warm welcome, everyone. Yeah. So what are a typical, let's say, a key takeaways we see out of this supply chain visibility webinar is, as Tom introduced the agenda. So understand, let's say, on a big picture, what is the need of supply chain visibility? Why let's say industries and customers are now giving such importance to this topic? What are the benefits out of it? Where exactly from an end-to-end perspective this topic is setting on a big picture? Then as Tom introduced, we will also have a demo in the system, and which will be in relation to what could be different implementation scenarios from the global track and trace perspective, and what are a typical, let's say, offering from our side. To start with the first topic, so visibility. I think the core idea is expect the unexpected. Let's become maybe one step ahead of the time and maybe try to see what could happen apart from the happy flow in kind of, let's say, supply chain. So I think why supply chain visibility, there can be an endless list which I could imagine, but I would pick maybe few of it. So although this list is quite, I would say, still would take maybe some minutes to read or go through, I would emphasize few of it. Yeah. So I think nowadays disruptions is a key word from a supply chain perspective. I think it was always there, but it maybe started gaining focus when we had the conflict in maybe from Suez Canal or some geographical conflicts, and which is making, let's say, this supply chain, which was somehow working in a happy flow, but then these disruptions actually brought the focus that no, this is something which also need an extra control. So not only just focusing on how well I'm, let's say, focusing on the my material suppliers, their provisioning of the materials, or maybe how well or qualified I'm choosing my carriers. But there is definitely some gray areas which also need some more controls or precise view on it, and that's where I think this visibility topic came in. Yeah, so a recent survey also says that almost, let's say, all the big customers, brands are getting benefit out of this topic, which is when you focus on this visibility. Yeah, so what advantages it is bringing in? So first is definitely, instead of reactive, we have to be proactive. Yeah, so when I'm able to find out that something might break in my supply chain if my precedence activity is not on time, or I need to maybe take some more counters, keep my plan B ready if maybe, let's say, my first leg from material to maybe port of loading might have some issues, or do I need to make some replanning? So I think that's what it enables to go in a proactive mode. As we are talking about taking some measures beforehand, I think definitely we are saving time from deliveries, time to serve the customer, time to react on maybe the unwanted issues which are landing from supply chain perspective, which is definitely going to lead maybe my overall operational uptime, overall working efficiency, which is basically making me to look into higher profit margins. Maybe as my customer delight is being served, that's where my improved brand image I can concentrate with this. As we are already acting on risk mitigation, that's where I call management by exception. So there is basically a proactive control I'm taking on unforeseen topics, and I could definitely convert them for my future working, as in to understand what are the weak links. Yeah, so that I can always keep my plan B, maybe take counters, feedback on the currently experienced disruptions topics, and then work with my business partners, as in maybe material suppliers, or maybe the routes which my carriers are taking. That's where I would definitely land into, I would say, environment concise brand, and that's how I see this also helping from a sustainability. So what I am going to achieve out of this is definitely the resilient supply chain, also supporting then my sustainable initiatives, and trying to let's say aim my reducing the global carbon footprint. So that's how I see why this visibility topic would definitely going to help the customers, the brands in let's say the overall achieving their KPIs, as well as maybe giving a green supply chain input. From a big picture, I actually see that we are always talking about a connected supply chain. Yeah, so from a happy path perspective, I would always start from either my warehouses or my manufacturing plant. There are based on my route, there could be a movement from my plant to port of loading, where my main leg, or either via air or sea, the main leg is going to get executed. Once it gets executed, there will be a delivery from the main leg to either customer, to my warehouses, to the distribution points. And if everything goes right, I think we are all happy. Yeah, so that's what I call typically happy flow. Yeah, and my customers are getting delivered internal as well as external on time, and the further, let's say, operations are not impacted. But in reality, what happens, I see, is basically we have definitely these disruptions. Maybe on the road, there are truck delays, traffics, waiting times because of some uncertainties. We always also would like to focus on how my main leg, or let's say sea carriages are moving. Are there any delays I am expecting? Do I need to work proactively from my container screening processes? And if there are any delays ongoing, which actually also then result into impacting on my material availability days, as well as the external features like custom delays, which might not be fully in my control or under my control, but I could basically foresee what could this delay result in. Yeah, so this is what we are talking about, gaining the visibility, how on maybe a route, on maybe a prescribed map, my cargo is moving, from, let's say, source to destination. I would like to gain this visibility, and what ideally would definitely help here is the two core topics here is, first is the SAP Business Network for logistics, the global track and trace component out of it, and then the visibility providers. Yeah, so what SAP Business Network for logistics global track and trace is going to bring me is, with this platform, I can ideally understand exactly where my cargo is, wherein my visibility providers also can provide this information by real-time tracking the cargo, the container, as well as maybe the vehicle. With this, SAP GTT, Global Track and Trace, allows us to keep a track of cargo journey. Yeah, so how well I'm managing this exact, let's say, shipment, and how good on time I'm behaving or reacting with my expected supply chain or transportation. And finally, it also allows us to understand the impact of delays. Yeah, I can definitely convert this information so that to use my further planning. Yeah, so that my counters or countermeasures are taken on top of those delays. So if my first leg is getting delayed, I'm able to foresee that what is the connected cargo from maybe my consolidation activities, what is that impact on my let's say vessel, or do I need to do some replanning so that maybe a deconsolidation can happen at my hub or distribution centers, so that warehouse also can be communicated about this delayed incoming cargo, and maybe, let's say, repacking or packaging, clearing the outgoing cargo, which is also supposed to be consolidated with that. So this is how I see that I could basically work on those delays and convert that into kind of a management of by exception process. With this, I would like to hand it over to my colleague Zenon, who can actually explain us more about what are the different, let's say, ways we could actually receive this information and convert that into a meaningful, let's say, data. And followed by this, let's say, explanation, we will go into the system, and where he could also explain the flow from a global track and trace perspective. So maybe over to you, Zenon.
Thank you. So in this typical kind of demo scenario, we have a shipper based in Detroit, USA. He's going to ship some material to Hamburg in Germany. So the first leg is going to be a road leg from Detroit to the port in New York. And then there's an ocean leg from New York to the port in Hamburg, and then a small road leg again to the final customer. Okay. So here in my SAP TM system, I've created a freight unit that represents the material. And here is the freight unit, and you can see here on the Stages tab, I've created 3 stages to represent each leg of the journey. So the first leg is in US, then the ocean, and then the final leg. And then that freight unit is, we build freight orders and freight bookings. So we build 2 freight orders that represent the road legs and a freight booking for the ocean leg. So this is all in TM. Note that you don't have to use TM, you could also do this in your ECC system if you're using the older shipments. So here we jump to GTT. This is called the Track Shipments app. Now here I've created a variant just so we see the freight orders and the freight bookings we're interested in. And on this screen, so I enter the variant, I click search, and now we can see those shipments, some basic details about, you know, the carrier, the locations, the planned times, the execution status, and you can see nothing is started yet, and a process status. Now I've jumped into the road freight order for the first leg of the journey. And at the top, you can see, you know, the source from my Detroit location to New York, some status information, some information like a license plate of the truck that the visibility provider uses, and finally, you know, a map of the journey. And on the left, you can see a list of planned events that we are going to monitor. So here we can see, you know, later on, a few days later, the execution has started. We're already seeing that this process status is late. So we need to drill down into that to see what's going on. Okay. So we can see that in Detroit on the left there, we have these loading end, loading start, and departure events. And they're already been reported a little bit late by the visibility provider, but we choose to ignore them because, you know, 3 hours won't impact us. So a little bit later on, you know, where we see that the truck is now running on time. Okay, so we're very good. It's only 2 minutes faster than our plan. So nothing to worry about. We're going to make it on time for our ship in New York. Here we can see the flashing blue dot, which is the last geo coordinate posted for the truck. Now later on, we can see the truck has now completed its journey. Everything's looking good. Quickly, I jump to the TM system, and I can see that the events have been posted from GTT to TM. And also in TM, you can see that the execution status is executed, so the first journey is complete. Now we started the ocean transport from New York to Hamburg, and everything's running on time. And we even have an ETA there from the visibility provider. We can see the ETA is very good. Everything's running on time. Okay, nothing to worry about at this point. Okay, a few days later, I get in my Teams, my Microsoft Teams, I get an alert here saying we have a bad delay on our shipment, on our ocean leg. So, you know, I jump into that URL you saw, and then it takes me to GTT. And now you can see, okay, I've got an ETA, which is very late, and delay status, you know, process status are both delayed. So something bad happening here. So I drill down into that freight booking. I can see it's 9 days later than our, you know, our planned kind of threshold time. So at this point, we can actually, yeah, okay. Now we look at the map, you know, everything's running late. So at this point, that's kind of the end of the video. But at this point, you know, you've seen that you have a problem. So now you can take action. So in this case, maybe the action points would be, maybe you would call the customer in Hamburg to let them know, you know, there's a problem and we need to replan the truck. Obviously, you need to call communicate with the carrier as well, and you might take some other activity like replanning the freight order in your transportation management system, you know, for the new truck that will pick up the goods 8 days later. Okay, so this is the demo we just saw. Okay, where in our S4 TM system we created an order that created a freight unit. Then we created some freight orders or freight bookings, and we transferred all this data to our BN4L GTT system. And this was then passed to our visibility provider. So, what is a visibility provider? It can be a carrier, or it can be, a company like Project 44 or Shipio, and they have a network of carriers, or you could, connect direct to the carrier as well. And the visibility provider or carriers will then receive the tracking request and then send all the events and notifications and all the shipping events back to our GTT system, where you can see the statuses, and that will also forward the events back to your TM system as well. Okay, so here's another example which I didn't show in the demo, but this kind of takes it a step further. So you can see on the left here, we're actually transferring the purchase orders, the sales orders, all the S4 documents across to GTT. And in this case, we're going to track on the shipment again, but in GTT, we have some additional apps which you can kind of see on the bottom right there, where you can do things like, when your events come into your shipment, like in GTT, that's then posted to, it updates the purchase order tracked object in GTT. So then you can say, okay, I have a late shipment, my shipment from Hamburg was delayed. So now I want to say, which purchase orders does that impact? And with these other apps, maybe you can just see it very small there. It says track purchase orders. You can see which purchase orders are actually impacted by a delay in the shipment. Okay, or which sales orders or which deliveries. So if you want to take it a step further and you don't, you have shipment visibility, but then you want to see, which purchase orders, sales orders are also impacted. Okay, Yogesh.
Thanks, Zenon. Good. So as Zenon introduced us to the different, let's say, ways of visibility scenarios, let's see how maybe one step deep how this implementation scenario look like from the system integration or architecture perspective. So we are talking about, let's say, two scenarios here. So again, the visibility with or without SAP transportation management. So the first scenario is where marked in blue is SAP Business Network for Logistics, GTT Global Track and Trace, integrated with SAP S4 TM. So that's what Zenon explained, where we have the freight unit, freight orders getting created based on the orders or deliveries from your ERP system. We will use these, or we can use these freight orders, freight booking as the object for the tracking or tracing object in Global Track and Trace, and then the visibility provider is actually providing us the events, milestones, and maybe the exceptions or delays at this level. And then another scenario which is on the right side in a gray area or marked with a gray banner is without transportation management, which is basically directly integrating with your current SAP ECC, maybe with your existing shipments. So there is no hard and fast need that it always has to work with maybe let's say transportation management system objects, but it can also be integrated directly with your current shipment object from the integration perspective, and then this becomes my object against which I would receive this tracking events. Maybe one step now deep at the implementation level. So how can we help you? And that's where maybe the expertise comes into the picture. So based on our past implementations, we could foresee that there are certain activities which can be, let's say, planned upfront if we have to implement maybe global track and trace solution, and the time to actual implementation can be reduced by using maybe these two offerings or two packages which Westernacher brings in. Yes, and that's where we call these are the time to value solutions. So we understand the need that when there is a need for deploying a solution, it has to be, let's say, time sensitive, or it has to be rapidly deployed, so that customers can actually start leveraging the benefits as early as possible, and which would definitely help to react on the current, let's say, disruptions, management by exceptions, and to have a centralized process around tracking, maybe shipments, maybe freight orders, as in the supply chain. Yeah. So what are these two, let's say, time to value solutions we are talking about? Is the first is when one of the visibility provider is Project 44. So Project 44 is a platform which ideally then gets integrated or onboard the carriers and can provide then this visibility to SAP Business Network for logistics, and we use this let's say onboarded carriers information and convert that into maybe a let's say milestone relevant activities. Yeah, so the first, let's say, package what we are talking here is with your SAP transportation management integrated. So we assume here that you're already running on SAP S4 system with your maybe TM also is already working, and then we intend to have Business Network Global Track and Trace and maybe Project 44 for the visibility provisioning. Yeah, so definitely we would like to then let's say be part of it with this package, and maybe we can also consult which subscription should be opted in this case, enable the Project 44 integration, and then the actual use cases actually can be then, let's say, integrated within 35 business days. So that's basically the time to value when we are talking about SAP Transportation Managed Integrated Global Track and Trace implementation. The next one is without SAP TM, yeah, with your existing ECC, or when you're using maybe your Elytra module, where shipments are being, let's say, created and being communicated to your carriers, and against which you would like to receive maybe these events, yeah, or milestones. So enable these shipments and convert this information from a visibility perspective. We could also integrate it directly to shipment level, at shipment level, and then Business Network via Project 44 can bring this, let's say, visibility as Zenon has demoed. And this is something which we foresee to be implemented within 40 business days. So these are two time to value packages with TM or without TM, directly with ECC shipment integration, where your visibility can be achieved either within 35 business days from implementation perspective, or maybe within 40 days at let's say the overall end-to-end perspective. So when these implementations actually are being foreseen from again coming to the big picture, what exactly the information at an overall end-to-end supply chain control tower perspective, this information is being brought in, that becomes, let's say, a vital link in between the end-to-end supply chain. Yeah, so we talked about end-to-end happy flow, and for the disruptions we are receiving this, or we would like to receive these events, milestones. We would like to understand the nitty-gritties, how well I've been getting delivered, or how well my customers are getting, let's say, delivered. Yeah. So that is the maybe the end-to-end supply chain we talked about. The visibility providers, which maybe my carriers via Project 44 or CPO, providing me the real-time, let's say, movements, real-time alerts, events from the execution perspective, which I'm then capturing at global track and trace level, I'm working on basically the management by exception processes. So for example, if I'm expecting or my planned event is supposed to happen next day morning, for which my unload has to be planned at maybe today, how well this let's say the integrity or the connectivity is working from the operational perspective. If not, I can also receive maybe some notifications. Yeah, so these are some topics from a control tower perspective I would be really keen to understand. And that's basically the supply chain control tower we envision, where you could input these values, for example, real-time visibility, delays, alerts, which give, let's say, a power to the planner or maybe the execution assistants to enable the management by exceptions process. What exactly this is going to lead to us is actually enable our customers with additional visibility, tracking, traceability at the customer level. Customers also can plan accordingly. My KPIs are getting managed at the visibility level. Whether DIFO report has to be then proved against how well I'm working versus those KPIs. It enables for the better decision making, as we spoke, that do I need to make any plan B arrangements, if I need to change the carrier, if I need to enable my different means of transport, if things are getting delayed than expected, then do I make urgent transportation or change the carrier, change the route. So that's basically the decision support. And finally, what we are going to enable this data to be used in obviously AI, where now the world is moving. Yeah, so when I'm feeding this data, when I'm feeding those rule sets from my KPIs as well as the notifications, that's where I see that we will use the AI use cases, and then the management by disruptions is something can be actually management by exceptions. That's how I see it, using a global track and trace as a visibility, input and controlling media in the end-to-end supply chain process. So to conclude from, today's topic, I would like to re-emphasize what SAP Global Track and Trace actually can enable the customers to use the management by exception processes, because then we are becoming more proactive than reactive. It enables the real-time tracking and allows us to super automate as much as can, because I would only be working on unhappy flows and non-happy flows, and take the complete control to deliver my customer with the best of the service. With this, I would like to hand it over to Tom back, so that he can check if there are any questions or if there are any open topics we should be discussing.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Yogesh. I think there's just this one slide for me to very briefly cover. There's just 3 examples of some services that we provide to some of our customers, such as inspiration days, health checks, and even a proof of concept. I think this is more of a kind of follow-up topic for anybody that wants to reach out to us to discuss this type of thing in a bit more detail. So I'll leave that slide there, as we do have quite a few questions that have come through as well. So thanks very much for the presentation, guys. I've found that myself really interesting, really nice to mix that up with a demo of the actual system as well, along with all the business benefits. So I think that was really, really interesting. And as I say, it sparked a few questions in the chat, so I can go through these one by one. So bear with me as I sort of just read these out directly. So I think this one's maybe part of the presentation that Zenon showed. Do you know the geospatial functionality that was used within the demo? As per my knowledge, it's subject to an additional license requirement. can either Yogesh or Zenon answer whether that's an additional license that we demonstrated there?
Maybe I can take that. Yogesh, jump in if I'm getting this totally wrong. I mean, GTT itself, so we got, what I was demoing there was, a few systems. So we've got the TM system running on S4. Then we've got GTT, which technically, we didn't really get into the technicalities today, but it runs on the BTP, the Big Business Technology Platform. Then we connect the business technology platform to the carriers. So typically it's the carriers themselves, maybe P44, visibility providers like Shipio, who have the, the geofencing technology?
Geospatial, yeah.
Okay, so if I understood that correctly, geospatial is where the carriers come into the picture. So it's if people like P44 or Shipio have that technology. So that's normally a discussion with them. So, it's different licenses. So maybe I made that clearer, I hope.
Yeah, I think you did. I think, yeah, the answer is that there is an additional license, which would be somebody like P44 or somebody that that provides a similar service. And we have partnerships with these types of organizations and proven kind of integration scenarios with them as well. So we can probably requires a deeper dive, but to answer the question, yeah, that would be an additional license added onto the SAP system. The next question, it said that we mentioned the GTT system. Is this something that's an add-on to be installed? So I make my own interpretation of this question. Just please correct me in the chat if we don't answer it correctly. But for clarity, the solution from SAP is Business Network for Logistics, and that solution is made up of 4 different sub-modules. So one of those sub-modules is Global Track and Trace. Another one is, I think, freight collaboration, then material traceability. Yogesh, you're going to have to help me with the name of the 4th one.
It's the Intelligent Insights.
Intelligent Insights, thank you. So there's 4 sub-modules which are standalone solutions within themselves, and you select the appropriate one for the business challenge that you're tackling. And in this scenario today, we have focused on the license or the solution for Global Track and Trace. Yogesh, did you have anything that you wanted to add on to that to make that any clearer?
No, I think that's completely correct. Yeah, and that's maybe one of the point we could definitely, as I mentioned on one of my slide, in time to value offerings. Yeah, so we could definitely we are happy to consult from the subscription perspective, and maybe what could be a right, let's say, licensing mechanics behind it.
Excellent. And if I've misinterpreted that question, please just message in the chat, but hopefully that's cleared up where that sits within the SAP suite. The next question is, how did you calculate the time to value in those scenarios, please? So maybe I'll do this again. I'll answer and then pass over to anyone that wants to add on to it. So the time to value solutions where we quoted, I believe it's 35 or 40 days, is a typical kind of implementation scenario. So I think one important point here is a time to value solution is a best practice fit to standard. So this is what we would maybe describe as a kind of vanilla implementation to get you started with a quick, as the name implies, a quick time to value of this solution. Of course, some organizations might have some nuances and some complexities that would require some custom development. That's out of scope of the kind of time to value effort days that we've quoted today. This would be to get you up and running with the solution and get value from it in a short space of time. And you can always build on that as time goes on if you wanted to go down that route. But of course, a lot of us these days know the value of best practice and fit to standards, so that's the approach that we recommend. I don't know if Zenon or Yogesh have anything to add on top of that.
No, I think you covered it very well. Yeah, I think the best practices is the starting point for time to value.
Excellent. And to go into a little bit more detail in terms of how we calculate it. So this is based off of our own experience with previous implementations and calculated through a mix of consultants within the appropriate levels, project director, solution architect, and built a team around our experience and how we've done it with other organisations. The next question, which I'll immediately pass over to either Zenon or Yogesh, what are the common challenges during a GTT implementation?
Okay, good question. I'd like to say there are no challenges and it's all smooth sailing, but maybe one day. So as you can see, I mean, there are several integration points here. So I'd say normally in a project, we start off by connecting our S4 system, it could be your ECC or TM to GTT. So the challenge is having the right people on the team. So there's a lot of basis work there. So you need to ensure your basis team, which could be me, I know a little bit about it, but your basis team needs to know technologies in S4 and also the BTP technologies as well. So if they have that, then everything's good. Okay. But then there's the what are we doing after GTT? So then we're connecting to carriers, and there's different options here. So I mean, if you're connecting through P44, all good. They've done it many times before. That's why the time to value is very short, because they have a lot of experience in connecting their carriers to GTT. But if you're not going to use P44, and there's an option you can connect direct to carriers, and then those carriers might have to connect their own backend systems to the APIs inside GTT, and that could be a challenging piece, I should say. But if you're using everything standard, you have a good basis team, and you're using like P44 or Scipio, and they're used to the APIs or the EDI that's used, then it's plain sailing.
Excellent, thank you very much. Another, I think, quite a common question that we come across, actually, an interesting one, is how long does it take to integrate a carrier?
Okay, that question again. Okay, so it's kind of linked to the previous question. So we have the P44 connectivity, which is usually quite smooth sailing. If if the carrier is already connected to P44, can happen very quickly. You just got to enable the APIs, the EDI, turn everything on. It'll be, I'm not saying 2 weeks, but yeah, it can happen very quickly. But if it is a carrier that's not already connected to P44 or to VN4L, then yeah, you need a good technical team on the carrier side to make those connections. But that is something that Westernacher can also assist with as well, because we've done this many times now. So we've gone through all the painful, stressful work of making that happen. So now we can do this in I'm not saying 6 weeks, but so it can be between 2 weeks if everything's connected already to 6 weeks if it's a brand new character and they need extra attention to connect to those APIs.
Excellent, thank you. And then just one last question. What is the data accuracy based on in your experience?
I can take that again. Okay.
No worries.
Okay, so we've got all different modes of transport. We've got road, ocean, rail, etc., air. So this, again, all depends on the visibility provider themselves. I've found working with companies like P44, they've been doing this for many years, and their algorithms and their connections are all very good. So their data is almost real time, virtually real time. Data is very accurate. Okay, so I guess my answer means is it all depends on how good the carrier and the visibility provider is able to their own capabilities. Okay, I mean 20 years ago, you typically had to wait 2 days for a departure to be reported by the carrier, but now hopefully, it gets reported real time.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that concludes the questions today. But of course, if any more questions or any other deeper dive demos or discussions are of interest, then I'll reach out and you'll have my contact details and we can definitely schedule those in. But for now, thank you everybody for joining the webinar today. We do these webinars kind of monthly across different topics. As I say, Westernacher deal with the full end-to-end supply chain solutions, so various other solutions are included within our webinar journeys, and we hope to see you on our next one. But for now, thank you everybody, and have a good weekend.